You know that person who can find something funny in almost any situation? The one who stays lighthearted in moments that would make most people fall apart? Chances are, they've lived through something real. And I don't mean an awkward haircut in 7th grade. I mean the kind of experiences that quietly rewire the way a person sees the world. Picture this. Somebody cuts them off in traffic. Do they explode in anger? Not really. Instead, they're already wondering if that driver just got bad news, is in the middle of a breakup, or is simply rushing to a bathroom. Because once you've weathered your own hurricanes, other people's drizzle just doesn't hit the same. Here's the part most people never realize about those who've been through a lot. Their minds run on a different setting, not damaged, just recalibrated. Shaped by necessity into a kind of survival expert that's still figuring out how to live in a world where the danger has actually passed. But underneath that, something even more curious is happening. These people build up a kind of resistance to chaos. Not immunity to hurt, exactly, but to being flattened by it. They've come to know, deep down, that they will keep going no matter what. And this is where it gets interesting. You'd expect someone who's suffered to turn bitter or shut everyone out. But often the opposite happens. They become some of the most caring, tuned-in people you'll ever encounter. Deeply, almost relentlessly empathetic. They can catch someone else's pain from across a room because they've studied that language their whole lives. A tiny change in your voice, a smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. They clock it instantly and start quietly figuring out how to check on you later without making it awkward. They can read silence too, not just the lack of talking, but its weight. Whether it feels heavy, disappointed, annoyed, or simply exhausted, they pick up on shifts in mood the way other people notice a change in the weather. Where most people see a room full of chairs and tables, they sense the emotional climate of the space. And here's the beautiful part that comes out of all that hardship. Many of them experience what researcher Richard Tedeschi refers to as post-traumatic growth. His work suggests that roughly half to 2/3 of people who face major trauma don't just recover, they actually move forward stronger. Their bonds with others grow deeper. Their sense of what matters sharpens. Their gratitude for small, ordinary things becomes almost overwhelming. They'll genuinely tear up watching a sunset, and they won't feel silly about it. But then comes the piece nobody really talks about. These same people often deal with a nervous system stuck on high alert. Their internal alarm never fully switches off. Ever notice someone who always wants the seat facing the door at a restaurant? Or someone who has a dozen contingency plans for something as simple as grabbing coffee? That isn't overreacting. That's a body that learned the hard way that feeling safe isn't guaranteed. And here's something that might catch you off guard. They tend to minimize what they've been through. It wasn't a big deal. Others have had it worse. I'm fine, honestly. It's almost like they've built an intolerance to being seen as someone who suffered. They've made it through by convincing themselves they're okay, so admitting they're struggling can feel like losing. Let's talk relationships for a second. People who've carried a lot often swing between being fiercely loyal and keeping their distance, sometimes doing both at once, which is as confusing as it sounds. They'll drop everything to help you at 3 a.m., but ask them to open up about what they need, and suddenly they're harder to pin down than a cat at bath time. Why? Because in their experience, letting people in has often come with a cost. When your past taught you that closeness can turn unpredictable, your body doesn't ease up just because someone's being kind. It tenses. Many end up caught in this loop, craving connection but dreading the vulnerability of relying on someone, because relying on people used to hurt. So they teach themselves to need no one, which looks like strength but often feels like isolation. Yet something remarkable also grows out of this. These individuals become remarkably good at rolling with change. New job? Fine by them. New city? Sure, why not? Life falling apart overnight? Somehow they figure it out, and their humor, especially the dark kind, hits differently. It's not about not caring. It's about stripping pain of its power. When you can laugh at how absurd your own suffering was, it loosens its hold on you. Humor becomes a kind of shield. Every joke is a small act of defiance against whatever tried to take them down. Here's another thing that might surprise you. These people often have a complicated relationship with control. They'll obsess over the tiniest details of daily life while staying oddly calm in the face of huge uncertainty. Why? Because they've learned the big things are often outside their hands anyway, but the little things, those they can manage. So they might spiral over which mug to use for coffee, while being completely unbothered about where their career is heading. That contradiction isn't a flaw, it's the whole point. They're living contradictions, tough yet soft, guarded yet giving, hopeful yet grounded in reality. They've learned to hold two truths at once. Life can be gorgeous and devastating, sometimes in the very same moment. But here's what rarely gets said out loud. Underneath all of it sits a quiet grief. Not grief over losing someone else, but grief over losing a piece of themselves. They mourn the version of them who trusted easily, who could laugh without first scanning the room, who never rehearsed conversations or braced for danger in a quiet pause. They miss the self who felt weightless, who never worried about being too much or not enough, who moved through life without their chest tightening at every unknown. How do you put into words that you miss a version of yourself you can barely recall? How do you explain being homesick for a place that only ever existed in your imagination? A childhood cut short, a gentleness never fully kept, a freedom discovered far too late. This grief doesn't destroy them, it molds them. It makes them more thoughtful, more observant, more deliberate in how they move through the world. It turns them into people who treasure calm because they know exactly what chaos costs. People who value trustworthy company because untrustworthy company taught them the price of the opposite. And maybe that's really the heart of it. People who've endured a great deal don't just make it through. They develop a rich, layered understanding of what it means to be human. They know real strength has nothing to do with never breaking. It's about how many times you're willing to put yourself back together, even when some of the pieces no longer fit quite the way they used to. Their survival turned into wisdom. Their pain turned into compassion, and somewhere along the way, without even meaning to, they became something rare, a lighthouse. Not because their life was easy, but because they learned how to navigate the kind of storms that would sink most people. A lighthouse doesn't shine because it never faced darkness. It shines because it remembers exactly what darkness feels like. So the next time you meet someone who seems just a little too unbothered by chaos, a little too at ease with the unknown, a little too quick to joke about their own pain, understand that they earned that. Every joke, every boundary, every flash of unexpected depth, it came from having gone through too much and somehow still showing up, still trying, still choosing hope. That's not just psychology. That's poetry in motion.